Hi, folks. Pastor Paul here. I was thinking about one of my favorite Saturday Night Live characters the other day, Gilda Radner. You have to go a long ways back to remember Gilda Radner, but she wrote a book called "It's Always Something." And I always remember that line. I have many days, I bet you do, where it seems like that. In one of her favorite characters was Emily Litella. Emily would always come in with an opposing view editorial, and it was usually because she had heard the news a little wrong, and boy, I really would get fired up. She was kind of the first woman of fake news, and the one I remember is at the time there was a lot of discussion about how violence on TV and in the movies was influencing our young people, and that there shouldn't be violence on TV. Only she heard it a little differently. So when she started her editorial, she was very upset about the all the arguments about whether there should be violins on TV. She couldn't understand why people would be against music, let alone violin music. And she'd go on and on and on about it. And then the host would finally say, Emily, it's violence on TV, not violins. And in a surprised expression, she would say, oh, and then she'd look at the audience and say, never mind. I was thinking about that for a couple reasons. One is the never mind part. We're going to have to say never mind to a few things. Remember how I had this idea about a big Easter in July bash? Well, the chances that we'll all be gathered in one big gathering is pretty slim. So we're going to have to save Easter for next Easter, I guess. Maybe your family planned a big vacation, long trip all over the country or the world. Probably not the best summer to do that. Find things to do around home. All the hopes that this would all be over in a couple weeks, and then it was a few months. Never mind. It's something we're going to adjust to and live with probably for the next year at least. And then, of course, there was always that hope that we'd all get along through this whole thing. And I feel like after this week we have to say, never mind. The violence that we see on TV is not violins, it's real violence. And the violence began with an officer killing Mr. George Floyd, and justice needs to be done against he and probably the other officers. And it isn't any more just when innocent people's businesses and homes and lives are destroyed by people acting out in anger, no matter how justified racism and its influence is. We have to find a way to talk through this. I put out on the signboard out front of the church, let there be justice on earth, and there needs to be justice. But let peace begin with me. May an attitude of peace and not anger and frustration, no matter how you're feeling through all this, may peace be the spirit you carry as you interact with everyone you meet. Let peace begin with you and me. I'm going to be taking a little break here, a few days off, and kind of reconfigure my time schedules and get some things done around the house that I need to get done. And when we get back on June 9th, the deacons are meeting, and we'll be making some decisions and hopefully have some information for you about how we're going to proceed over the next month or two. And that should be good. Let's get ready for the future. Thanks.